Hey, Bobby here from Wedding Film School, a channel dedicated to educating and inspiring wedding filmmakers. And in this video, I want to walk you through an awesome free spreadsheet to help you decide if outsourcing your wedding editing is worth it for your business. Now, to be clear, in this video, I am not talking about the pros and cons of outsourcing. We all know there are great reasons for and against sending out your wedding film edits, and it really comes down to a personal choice for your business. However, if you're considering outsourcing some or all of your weddings, it's important to look at the financials and make sure it's a viable option for you. So we created a spreadsheet just for you guys, free of charge, to help you figure out exactly that. And you can get your own copy of this spreadsheet, follow along for free, ready to fill out over on our website, weddingfilm.school. Let's jump in. All right, so here we are in the Wedding Film School Studio Profitability Calculator. And today what we're really using this for is to talk about if outsourcing is worth it for you. Now, a few things to go over before we dive into these numbers. Now, in this video, we're only going to be talking about the profitability side of potentially outsourcing. And it's important that I acknowledge right off the bat, there is more to outsourcing than just the financial benefits of it. And I totally understand that. I was right there with you for a very long time. I did choose ultimately to try outsourcing, and it has really changed my business. It's been a great way for me to continue to do this long term. I'm at like 14 years finished now, and to still enjoy it, which I place a lot of value on. And I was able to work with an editor to really dial in what I want for my films to the point where they can edit essentially in my place. Now, I don't outsource everything, but I do outsource some things, and it's been great for me. We're going to be working with the No Backlog rates. No Backlog is a sponsor of this channel, so many thanks to them. But of course, if you choose to use a different editor, you might want to plug their rates in to get a more accurate estimate. But if you are looking for an editor, check out No Backlog. Very streamlined and very awesome service. So a few more things to go over. These beige boxes are what you fill in. The orange boxes are auto-calculated for you. And then one last thing is that I have done this pretty loosely. Now, I tried to make accurate estimates and things like that. But a few things to note is that I'm only using this on the wedding side. We do plenty of commercial work and other stuff like that. So a lot of the income isn't in here. With that, of course, a lot of the expenses aren't in here either. Now, I've tried to do a good job, but more so, even with loose numbers, you can still see the financial advantage to outsourcing at the end of this. So the first thing that we're going to fill out here is our taxes, and this is income tax. I guess 25%. That could vary, of course, based on your income. It can vary based on where you're located and things like that. So fill it out to the best of your ability. We're going to come back to this section in a little bit to look over all this other stuff. We're going to move down here to our wedding day labor, variable costs per wedding. So wedding day labor is how many hours you spend shooting a wedding. Now, I calculated 18, that's based on an average of 9 hours per wedding, and then 2 shooters were a husband and wife team. Travel time, again, this is an average, and the way that I looked at this is for local weddings, how much time I'm spending driving to and from and during on the day. I estimate that to be about an hour. Now, of course, if we have a destination wedding, if we have a wedding where we are driving a few hours, we would charge for that time. So I'm not including it here because there'd also be income associated with that. Contracted labor, as I mentioned, we don't hire any of that out, nor do we rent any equipment, but add that in if you do. And then car travel costs, kind of based on the thing up here, I said roughly 40 minutes roughly 40 miles at the reimbursed IRS rate. I know it's not 0.6, it's like 0.58 or something like that, but I put 0.6. Then we get into administration. So we go into sales, and you can actually, if there's a little tick mark here, you can click that and it'll give you a note as far as what it means. So sales for me, I estimated to be, I basically see that as my initial emails, which there will usually be a couple back and forth before we do a consultation. So I estimated 30 minutes or half an hour. Consultation, about an hour. We might get drinks, we might go get coffee, something like that, or it might just be a phone call, but I give roughly an hour for that. And then post-production, and this is not your editing, this is managing your post-production, this is transferring footage, and then posting the final stuff. So for that, I said 2 hours, although that will vary. Then I'm going to come over here. This is the actual editing, which I estimate comes out to about 30 hours per wedding. That's for me. You might be different. I said an hour in music selection. That is actually something that I have a video on about how to, basically get a selection faster of the music you're looking for, things that I look for in a song and how to streamline that process. You can check it out above. Trailer and social. This is another interesting one because for me, the trailer is not something that's included in most of my collections. So if they do book a trailer, this would be more time, but there'd also be more income associated with that. So I tried to make this more about the social media stuff. So that's exporting for social media, posting, blogging, stuff like that. The highlight film is where most of my work goes. I said an average of 25 hours. Of course, that will depend based on how long the film is and the day and many other variables, but I think that's a good average. Full-length film, that is our ceremony film and our reception film, which is basically just the toasts and dances, things like that. So I said about 2 hours for that. I chose not to include rendering because I usually find that I'm able to do something else during that if I choose to. And then changes, we don't ask for changes. Doesn't mean I've never done a change. It just means that it's not something that I commonly do for a wedding. So that comes to 30 hours. Then we get into more fixed costs over on this side here. So these are kind of things that are costs of doing business regardless of how many weddings you do. So studio space, I don't have that. Similarly, I don't have utilities then tied to that. Insurance, we pay $500 a year. Business registration would be like your business license. I put $200. Studio management, we use Dubsado at $350. Email hosting at $60. We don't do any associations. Office supplies, rough estimate, $100. And other expenses, I put $2,000. This would be like, there wasn't a line for my CPA, things like that. This might be a little over, could be a little under. Then we get down here into more website stuff and marketing. So this is my hosting at $400 annually. The price of producing or actually making my website, which was around $1,500. So far, we've gotten 4 years out of use out of it. We don't do any ads or expos, so these are all blank for us. And directories, $3,000. That is our listing on the Knot, which each year has worked out for us so far. Video hosting, $300. That's Vimeo Pro for us. Data backup, $150, and then music licensing, $900, which is Soundstripe and the Music Bed. Also purchase software, we use Final Cut Pro X. We've used that for around 6 years. It's a little cheaper than $500, but I figure there's probably other add-ons that I've purchased as well, so I put $500. So I know these are not perfect, but it's still going to work for our purposes here. So the last thing we get into are assets, and these are the physical costs or physical things, so costs of equipment, and then we kind of depreciate that based on how much it's worth, how long you've used it, stuff like that. Of course, a lot of these are grouped together, so again, it's just an estimate, but cameras and lenses, I said maybe $10,000 a piece. It might be a little bit more than that. I said I could sell them for this amount. These are all 100% business use. And how long I've had them, this is a tough one, especially when they're lumped together like this, but I put in what my best guess was there. Then, of course, we have audio, lighting, tripods, gimbal, bags and cases, drone, batteries. There's also some things missing here like memory cards, so you can roll that in if you want. Then we get into laptop, desktop, iPad, phone, hard drives, furniture, things like that. And so let's go back up to the top left here. And that's where you're going to see how this got filled out. So we have our gross sales at 120,000. That's based on the number of weddings I do over here and the average wedding cost. Total cost, which is a lot of the things down here that we went over, that figures out your gross revenue. Then it says sales tax. It's in the US, it's income tax, but your tax rate, and that calculates your net profit. And then it takes these things over here, which is the amount of hours you filled in around here, your annual hours spent doing administration, shooting, and editing. And then it asks to insert your estimate for marketing. I said 50 hours. Of course, that could be off by some amount. That comes into your total yearly hours worked, your total weekly hours worked. And again, guys, this is just wedding. I don't only work 21 hours a week. I have the YouTube stuff, I have commercial work, and I probably work more than this on weddings, I would say, on average. But for the sake of this video, let's go with that. And that calculates your hourly wage over here. Then the important part as far as figuring out if editing is worth it for you, and that is this box here. Now, this is using no backlogs rate, which if we click on this tab down here, you can see these rates. I guessed based on a 4-minute highlight film. I think that is my average. And since we've been using a lot of averages, that's what we're going to go with. And then this is $247 for that. I don't have no backlog or any editor that I've used do my full length films. To me, it's only 1 or 2 hours of work, and I don't mind just doing that. And the amount it costs me to outsource it is not worth it to me personally, but that, of course, will be different for you, so make sure you plug in what you want. So a 4-minute highlight film, no trailers, no full length. Of course, I might choose to do that for specific weddings, but on my average one, it's just the highlight film that I'm outsourcing. And so that comes to $267 down here based on their fixed fee for rendering. So we get to opportunity costs, and this is a good way to put it here. So this calculation of outsourcing costs divided by the number of hours you take to edit yourself. And this allows you to understand what you are effectively paid to edit instead of sending it for an outsourced production. So that's $9, which is incredibly low. And you can also fill these in. So what hourly rate could you earn shooting other events? Our hourly rate is $150 roughly gross. And what percentage of wedding jobs might you outsource? I put 80%. That might change for you, of course. If you were to outsource 80% of your weddings at $150 per hour for another event, if you recovered those, then your hours that you are now free to shoot other events is 480 hours, which could net you $67,000. This is me, I guess, could net me $67,000. Now, of course, I need to be very clear. I am not saying that outsourcing automatically translates to an extra $67,000 in my pocket. I am not going to fill all of that time with other bookings, and that is okay with me because there is value in that. I still work very hard, but I don't want to shoot 60 weddings in a year or anything like that. So, but with that said, it is very eye-opening to look at this and say, well, let's see. Here's some other math. If I spend, let's call it $300 per wedding, $300 times 20 weddings, that's $6,000. I could pay for all of my wedding editing outsourcing by booking one more wedding, essentially, at my average rate of $6,000. So if you can find an editor and work with an editor to dial in your exact style and things like that, and if you are okay giving up some of that control and you are happy with the final product, it can be turned around in your time frame and plenty of other variables. Outsourcing your editing, when done right, can be a game changer for the business side of your business as far as income, profitability, and things like that. Do the math and figure out if it's worth it for you, because in many cases, especially for some weddings, it is. You don't need to outsource every wedding. You can outsource the ones that you're not as excited about. You can outsource the ones that you're having difficulty with. You can outsource whatever ones you want, and there is value in that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.